Everyone, it's Steve speaking from SJK Astro, and what I'm going to do on this video is do a bit of an introduction to manipulation of images in Photoshop and the blending of different types of image, in particular the hydrogen alpha image with the different RGB color channels, and manipulation of them to get quite a nice bright picture with a lot of detail. So the image that I'm going to be working with, or the subject matter that I'm going to be working with, is this. This is a famous California nebula in Perseus, so called because it bears some resemblance to the state of California in the US. So this is what we're going to be working towards. This is an image that I've already done. There's a few things I can see wrong with it, to tell you the truth, if I'm perfectly honest. It's a little bit overly bright in the red channel, but let's work towards an alternative image. So first and foremost, I'm not going to go through a PixInsight tutorial here, but first and foremost, this is the RGB master image that came from the RGB channels from the image. And by the way, if you're wondering how much data goes into those RGB channels, surprisingly little actually for this particular subject. So I've got 5-minute exposures here, so I've got a total of 8 5-minute blue frames, so 40 minutes in total. I've got 35 minutes of green, I've got an hour of red, and I've got about 2 hours of hydrogen alpha. So the total integration time of this is going to be in the order of sort of like 4 hours. So that's a reasonable amount of time, but you know, it's not excessive by any stretch of the imagination. So the data set is not vast, but it's okay to give us something reasonable, which I showed you at the beginning, and we'll work towards an alternative image of that. So the purpose of this little video is not to go through all different options of getting your non-linear master images in PixInsight. Suffice it to say that this is the RGB master here, and what I then did is that I extracted the luminance from, well, what I did is I extracted the red, green and blue channels from this to create a synthetic luminance. And then what I did is I sharpened that synthetic luminance with deconvolution, and I did a bit of HDR multiscale and histogram equalization to it, and then I blended that back with the RGB data again. So this is the difference between the two. This is the one with the synth loom in it, and this is the one without that. So it's a little bit more detailed. Admittedly, not a vast amount, but it's a bit more detailed than what this one is. So this picture here is the one I'm going to be taking across into Photoshop. What I also did is I also created an hydrogen alpha image with the Astrodon HA 3nm filter. Any of you guys who own that filter will know and attest to how good it is. And by the way, this is Astrodon filters as well from RGB. And I did this. All of this, by the way, is done with a Samyang, or Rokinon, as you guys in the United States call it, or in Canada call it. Samyang Rokinon 135mm DSLR lens, because this is a very big object in the sky, right? So there's no way you get it with a telescope. It has to be really wide field. So anyway, that's my hydrogen alpha HA channel, and what I got after removing the stars with StarNet, which is an optional process you can install. It's free as well, by the way. You can get it from GitHub or anywhere like that. You can install that, and you can run the star extraction script, and then you've got a copy of the image, the hydrogen alpha image, without the stars. And they can say, well, why would I want to do that? All will become clear, right? So what I want to do is take this across into Photoshop as well. So on that note, let's minimize that. Here we are in Photoshop. Before I start doing any work with the astronomy images, I just want to be absolutely clear that people are fully conversant with what's going on. So this is me and my girlfriend Louise, and I just want to show you the importance of being able to use layers. So what is a layer? So a layer in Photoshop, think of it as having a photograph on a table and a piece of clear acetate on the top of it. You could write on that acetate all you wanted to, and then you could take that acetate away and the picture's fine underneath. It's the same same concept. So I've created a layer here. What I could do is I could B for the brush tool, and let's minimize that a little bit. What color have I got? I got white, so I could just do silly things all over the picture and ruin it. And you can say, oh no, you've destroyed the picture, Steve. Well, I haven't, because I just removed that piece of acetate. You get it? And I could create make a copy of that, and what I could now do is I could change my color to, I don't know, change it to green. Okay, and then I can do something. Now obviously I'm being ridiculous here to prove my point, yeah, but I can just remove these layers if I wanted to, and that is a key concept of astronomy, or actually any digital signal processing, the ability to be able to use layers on your image, because there's all sorts of things you can do with the layers. You can make them more or less opaque. You know, you can go to this layer, turn that layer off, but leave the green layer on. There's all manner of different things you can do. So the ability to be able to manipulate layers is of crucial importance of astronomy processing, and any processing for that matter, digital image processing. So let's close that. Whoops, sorry, let's close this down. No, I don't want to save it. So let's load up what we exported. So I've got a directory called PI exports. So I've got my synthetic lume RGB, which is the master luminance with the there we go. And let me also open up the sorry, where is it? Where is it, Steve? Where is it? Here we go. Okay, so this is one with stars. So what I need to do, I thought I got that, guys, I'm sorry. Let me back up a little bit. In fact, what we could do, actually, am I going mad here? Let's have a look. What we could do, no, I've lost this. Oh, it is starless. What am I doing? Right, okay. So let's sorry about that. Let's go start that again. So we opened up the RGB with the synthetic luminance applied to it. So it's nice, quite a nice picture in its own right. Okay. So now let's open up. Let's have a look. The starless version. Here we go. Sorry about that confusion. So let's press V to get our normal cursor back. We've got RGB, which is nice, and we've got the luminance with the hydrogen alpha, which is nicer still. Notice this really fine detail that the hydrogen alpha filter has picked up around the periphery of the nebula. Yeah, we've still got that in this particular picture, but it's not as pronounced as what it is in the pure hydrogen alpha. So what we want to do, what we're setting out to do in this process, sorry I appear a little bit dark in my video there, it'll be all right. So probably doing you a favor actually. So what we're trying to do is to keep the color and enhance the color, but what we want to do is also to bring out more detail in the structure of the California Nebula, and that's what we're going to do. So first thing is we're going to take the synthetic lume and RGB, this picture that we brought in from, remember I've done nothing to this so far, and what we're going to do, go to the channels menu, and we're going to split the channels. Okay, so now we've got a red, green and a blue. Remember, we are imaging here, we are imaging an emission nebula, which are very rich in hydrogen alpha data, and that glows red. So it's no surprising then that we just split our color image into the red, green and blue channels. It is very dominant in the red channel, almost non-existent in the green channel. You can still see some bits there, almost non-existent though, and a bit in the blue. But it's the red that bears the majority of the signal. So what I want to do is I want to blend some of the hydrogen alpha into the red predominantly, but a little bit into the green and a little bit into the blue as well, to try to bring the detail out in those channels a bit more. Now some purists will tell you you should only do that with the red channel. Well, my experience is that it also works equally well putting a little bit in the green and a little bit in the blue as well, and it gives you a nicer result. So with that said, how do we blend this with that, with the red channel? Quite easy. we go to the hydrogen alpha, Control A to select it, Control C to copy it, go to the red channel, Control V to paste it on top. And if we now look at the layers menu, we can see that we've got a new layer, just like we did when I did that photograph of me and my girlfriend before. We've now got a layer on top of the picture. So I can turn that layer off if I want to. Now look at the detail jumping out and all of this nebulosity around the edge jumping out when I that on and off. So what I want to do is I want to reduce the opacity of this layer that I've just pasted on top so that the bottom layer shines through a little bit more. And I do that by moving the opacity slider down. Can you see? To about 40%, something like that, generally speaking. That's nice, I like that. So now, if I turn the layer off completely, you can see that we've got a nice balance there, and it dims the stars a little bit as well. And I like that. Okay, now you can change, if you want to, you can change the type of layer this is. Now I've left this as a normal layer. What some people like to do is make it a lighten layer. Okay, if you make it a lighten layer, you can see, and what a lighten layer does is it only allows the brightest of the pixels of the two images to shine through. Only the brightest pixel of 1, 2 or 10, if you like, will shine through. So lighten is also a good way to go. So lighten layer, you can see, brings out the wider nebulosity. Look around this area, okay, around here. If I turn that off, it disappears. So the lighten layer is actually quite a good way to go here. I'll leave the layer at lighten, and the opacity it's around about, I don't know, 20, about 50. I'm going to make that opacity. But there's numerous ways you can do it. It all depends on the image and the strength of the individual signals. Lighten's a good way. Some people will use an overlay layer. Okay, so that's not showing a great deal. Or you can use a lighten layer. So I'm going to go for the lighten layer because it gives me the best of both worlds. The brightest elements of each image are evident in the final result. Okay, so we've done the red layer now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to merge this down, and it will become evident why in a moment. Merge down. So I'm going to do something similar with the blue colour. I'm going to do Control V to paste it on the top again. I'm going to, so if I unclick it, you can see there's the layers. This is what's critical, that using layers. And I'm going to make the opacity about 40%, something like that. And I'm going to turn it into a lighten layer. Now, look at that, come up nice. I still think 40% might be a bit high. Yeah, we're not trying to get the blue channel to compete with the red channel. Remember, naturally, an emission nebula is very bright in the red channel anyway, right? But we don't want to ruin that brightness by making the blue or the green channels too strong. So 25% is plenty. Then I'm going to do the same with the green. Now notice how, as I said earlier on, how naturally dim it is in the green channel. But let's put a bit of detail in there anyway. Control V again. This time I'm going to reduce the opacity way down to 15, something like that. And again, I'm going to make it into a lighten layer. So look at that, how that's boosted that green a little bit. It's just put a little bit more structure into the green layer. Can you see? So we've got a red layer. We merged down. So we've collapsed it all into one layer now. We've got the green. Let me merge down again. And I need to merge down in the blue as well. But before I do that, I'm going to show you what happens if you don't merge down first. So what I want to do now is I want to combine the red, the green and the blue back into an RGB color image again, because these are grayscale at this moment in time. When we split the RGB color image up into its constituent channels, we converted them to grayscale. We now need to recombine them together to create an RGB image, right? So that's what we're going to do. So I need to go to the channels menu and I need to go to merge channels. Now you can see it's grayed out. Can you see there? You cannot merge channels unless you have merged down into one layer, so that when you merge the channels together, the channels that are going to be merged must only be one layer. Red, which you can now see, the red, the green and the blue are one layer each. Now if I go to channels menu, I've got the merge channels option, so I select RGB color, I click OK. Then I have to select which of my channels I want to merge, which in this case is going to be the red one there. This one's going to be the green, and this one is going to be obviously the blue. I click OK and it merges those together to create me an RGB image of the final result. So that now is a more vivid picture than I had when I moved into this process. Just to remind you of that, if I open the incoming picture, the synth RGB, this is the one I came into Photoshop with, and this is the picture I've now got. It may not be coming across that well in YouTube, but there's more fainter detail around the edge. Don't worry about the color, I can address that later on. It's bringing out additional structures around the edges of this nebula that I'm concerned about. And this is I managed to do it. It's very subtle, but image processing is and should be very subtle. If you've got an image that you need to perform 20 set steps on, then each step between steps 2 and 3 and between steps 7 and 8 should be small. If at any stage you've suddenly gone, wow, a massive difference between a step, then you've probably done too much. As a general rule, is what I've found, right? Image processing is always very subtle. So have a drink, excuse me. So now I've got my RGB image where it's had the hydrogen alpha blended into it, into each of the channels, but predominantly into the red channel. Now what I want to do now is to bring out, I press Z or Z, Z in English, in our English, I know you guys in America call it Z, so I press Z there, and I'd like to bring out more detail in the nebula because it's a little bit, I think it's got more, there's more detail in it than is showing there. Let me close the image down that I imported. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the hydrogen alpha image, and I want to select the red channel out of this hydrogen alpha image. The way I do that is I change the mode of the image into RGB color, and you will now see that the set of channels has been exposed. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the blue channel, which I don't want, I want the red channel. I'm going to get my brush larger, and I'm going to, actually that needs to be in black, because I'm blacking out this channel completely. I don't want this channel. Yeah, so completely wipe it out. Look what's happened to the RGB image now I've taken the blue channel out. Now if I go to the green channel and do likewise, I think you know where this is going to go, what I'm going to be left with. I'm going to be left with a very reddened version of this image. This is showing the hydrogen alpha glowing, right, which creates that really nice red colour of the star forming regions when you photograph a galaxy or something. So what I'm going to do now, press V to get out of that mode. I'm going to do Control A, Control C to copy it, go back to my image, Control V to paste it as a layer on top. Now obviously I don't want my image to look like this, right? What I want to happen here is I want this red to, and the details in the red, to colorize the underlying image. So what I need to do is lessen the opacity of that layer, right, to something much smaller. So now I've got it at 35%. If I take it off, and that's still looking a bit red. So what we need to do is to change the type of layer. Now the type of layer you choose is dependent upon what works for your image, is my advice. Sometimes I'll use the lighten but then I don't find there tends to be a great deal of difference. If I use a lighten, I like the screen. So can you see the glowing hydrogen that's in the background of this image? You can see it's not just the there's all this round here in the bottom corner, all this glowing hydrogen. It contributes to the wider image. Can you see? I might want to increase the opacity, make it a little bit more, and I can do something about this color balance shortly, but it's the detail and the extent of the nebula and bringing out some of these other regions that is what concerns me at the moment. I still think that's a little bit high. I might drop that to 50, something like that. And can you see how very subjective this is? And this brings us to another important point. There is no right way to do this. Okay, it's how you want to display your image. You captured this image, or in my case, I captured this image. I used my equipment outside in my backyard to do this. So it's up to you and how you wish to present your image that matters at the end of the day, right? There's no right and there's no wrong way to do it. And I often remind people of that fact. You know, it's how you want your image to be presented that matters. So screen, I found, is a good way to do it. Normal it darkens some of the other layers too much, although there are things I could do about that if I wanted to with masks, but I won't bore you with that here. But I found the screen is a nice way to do it. Dodge can help as well. So if I went for that one, it doesn't really have a great deal of effect, does it? So screen is the one I tend to go for. These are different modes of ways that the pixels work in between different layers, but I like that, and I think that looks quite nice. So that's what I'm going to stick with, and I got about 50%, look, yeah, 52% of opacity. So this shines through 52% below. I like that. So what I want to do now is press Z, I want to bring out more detail in the structure of the nebula. So the way I'm going to do that is by getting a copy, go back to the grayscale versions of the channel here. I'm going to do Control A, Control C to copy it. Then on the layers here, I'm going to do Control V. And I'm actually going to create 4 copies. Control V again, Control V again, and Control V again. I'm going to create a group, and what I'm going to do is copy these into that group, and it will become clear why shortly. So I'm going to deselect all but one of those copies. So layer number 2, I'm going to call that P2 for pixels number 2, or 2 pixels. With it selected, I'm going to go up to filter, I'm going to go to other, go to IPass, and I'm going to 2 pixels. In fact, you can enter 1 pixel if you wanted to. I put 1 in there. If I zoom in, you can see that there's some faint structures in the background that are only 1 pixel in diameter. Well, not in diameter, across I should say. So I've done that. 1 pixel across, but that's blocking out my image, right? What am I going to do with that? So I click it, and then I change the layer type to overlay. Now if I zoom in, and I like to switch on and off this, on and off, on and off, this very faint detail started to become revealed by this high pass filter of 1 pixel. I should correct that as well. I'll call it 1p. Let's do the same thing again for the next scale. This time I'm going to call this, I don't know, 2.5p. So let's go to filter, other, IPass, and this time we're going to 2.5 pixels. And you can see here that this time the structures are larger that are being selected in that IPass filter. They're 2.5 pixels wide. Again, the layer, I will change it to be overlay layer. Now will become clear why I put these in a group. I can switch both the layers off simultaneously, and can you see there's more detail being revealed? Maybe too much is being revealed actually, and I need to do something about that too. But for now, go to the 3rd layer, and I'm going to call this 5p. Again, I'll go to filter, IPass, and we'll make that 5 pixels wide. Now it's even larger structures in the nebula that are being revealed. I'll change it to an overlay, and yeah, that looks a bit weird now, doesn't it? Because it's gone too far, but we can do something about that shortly. And for the sake of finality, the final one, this time I'm going to call that 8 pixels. So again, filter, other, high pass, and 8 pixels. And we could go to 10, 15, 20, 25 if you wanted to, but this picture starts to look too posterized when you do that. Again, change it to an overlay type of layer, and that's our image. Now that's gone too far. So what we need to do is back down on the opacity of the 8 pixel layer, and we do that by bringing the opacity down. Can you see it's going? That's coming back now. I'm raising it again, and I'm going to drop that to about, I don't know, about 20. I'm going to go to the 5 pixel layer, and I'm going to drop the opacity of that to say 30. Then I'm going to go to the 2.5 pixel layer. This is all very subjective, guys. There's no hard fast rules here. I'm saying I'm making basically seeing how it goes when I put these in. 2.5 pixels, and the 1 pixel, I don't know, I'll make that about 75. So now I can turn the entire lot on with this group on and off in one go. Can you see? So if I zoom in a bit more, on, off, on, off, we're revealing the structures inside this nebula. And I like that. But what I don't like is it's having an effect on the outside of the nebula as well. I don't like that. So if I turn it off, you can see, I don't know if it's visible on the YouTube compression, but if I turn it back on again, it's putting some noise in the background. So there's several things I need to do to correct this image as well, the stars for instance, but that's another story. I don't like this noise that's been introduced. It's on. When I take the IPass filters off, it's gone again. On, off. So what I want to do is I want to put on a mask on this image so that the effect of these filters is only going to be applied to the areas where I want it to be applied. At the moment it's being applied to the entire image, and I don't like that, and I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is create a mask to the group, and it's another reason why we put all of these IPass filters in a group. So to create a mask, what I do is I click this like just little Japanese flag icon down here, click that, and at the moment everything is selected. White means everything is selected. White selects, black deselects. So I've got to create my filter in there. I could try to paint it manually, but that's going to take me forever. But I've already got already done for me, i.e. the hydrogen alpha starless image. If I Control A to select it, Control C to copy it, go back to this image. Now I need to select the mask, so I do Alt click of that mask, then Control V to paste the image into the mask. This is not the image, this is now the mask. I'll go back to the picture, and now this is only being applied, Alt click again, where the image is white. White means it's going to be applied. Black means it won't be applied, and it will be a varying level of between the white and black in terms of the grayscales. There's 65,535 levels that it can apply. So it's very discrete and very controllable. Now, alternate 0, by the way, to get back to Control 0 to get back to full screen mode like this. Now, if I turn that filter on and off, it's a very subtle effect. That's what we want. We want subtlety. Yeah, this is not paving slab approach, right? This is subtle. Some aspects in life I don't do subtle, but I do in this. Otherwise it looks crazy. So that's with the filter on. Now what I could do is I could go, if I thought, you know what, that filter's taken the effect off too much, I could alt click back into the filter again. I could do a Control L, and then I could adjust the levels a little bit to give me more contrast on the mask. So I could bring the white levels up further. Let me just do a Control 0 on this to get back into full screen mode again. Can you see? I can control, because remember, where the white is where the effect will be more pronounced. Now that is much more of a high contrast mask. I'll put that on, and in real time that will then have had an effect on the picture. So if I take it on and off, you can see how we've enhanced those details in the nebula. It's subtle, but it makes a nice difference. So I'm happy with that now. Can you see why we're doing these layers, how important it is that we use layers? Okay, we can go back to a previous place. So I could turn that off, and I could turn that off and go back to the original image if that's what I wanted to do. So I don't like the colour of this image at this moment in time. It's a little bit too salmon. It's not bad, but I like to just control the colour balance a little bit more and maybe enhance a few things on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to adjustments, and I'm going to create a new layer. So which one do we want to do? Brightness, contrast, hue, saturation, colour balance. Okay, so could I, if I go more red, obviously that's taking it crazy. That's going too far the other way, too pink. Right, so I could do a colour balance. Actually, that's gone in the wrong place. I need to lift that one higher up there. Hang on, guys. I'll be back in a second. I've got my layers the wrong way around. I'll be back in a second. So I got into a bit of a mess with my layers there, and it happens sometimes. What you got to remember about layers is if you want to introduce a new layer now by going adjustments and I don't know, let's say saturation layer. If you've got the group open, it thinks you want to put another layer inside the group, but I don't want that. So what you have to do is close that down, close the group down, minimize it, then add the adjustment layer. So just be aware of that with Photoshop. It makes sense actually if you think about it, but it can sometimes, when you're recording like I am now, it got me confused for a second, so sorry about that. So here we go. What we did is we created the group there, we sharpened the image, and we can turn that off again, look, if you want to. You can see that sharpening and unsharpening. But now I want to look at the hue and the saturation of this image. So what I could do is I could adjust the saturation of it, but clearly that's taking it too far. And it's also affecting the entire image, which is not what I want. I just want it to affect the parts of the image that I want. So to do that, we can create another mask again. So alternate click. Remember, I had the mask already selected. Control V. So I've created a mask. And now, when I adjust the controls, it only affects the area that's shining through the white. So this is how we can control where we want the effect to be applied by using the mask. So what I want to do is just to up the brightness of the nebula a little bit, and just up the saturation a fraction, maybe just press with the hue a little bit, something like that. It's very subjective, something like that maybe. I like that, that's okay. Just trying to think. What I want to do now is maybe add another layer. This time I think what I'm going to do is put in a let's have a look, vibrance layer. Is there a vibrance layer? Yeah, sure there is. No. Alright, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's look at the colour. The colours of the image. Let's see if we can just roughly see that up in the blue a little bit. Just expands it out a bit, can you see? But you can't overdo it, otherwise you destroy the rest of the nebula. So that's why we need a mask again. alternate click in the mask, Control V, go back to the colour mixing. Now that's gone too far obviously, but bring it down a bit like this, maybe a bit of green. It's all very subjective. I quite like it like that, to tell you the truth. So has that made any effect? Turning the layer on and off, yeah, we've brightened it up a little bit. Can you see? So this is why layers is so powerful, and it's such a good feature to use and to become familiar with. So I'm pretty happy with that. There's still a few, it's a bit salmon coloured, but I don't know, it's not so bad. So now what I'm going to do is I want to create myself a breakpoint here where everything I've done so far, I want to capture this and encapsulate it in one image. To do that, Shift, Control, Alt, E. Okay, that creates me a fresh copy of everything that I've done so far. So if I screw up from now on, I can just delete everything above and I'm back to where I was lower down. Now I've done that and I've got that selected, I'm going to go through the filter and I'm going to choose Camera Raw. And Camera Raw is actually the thing that you use in Lightroom. It's the engine at the back of Lightroom that you use to adjust the sliders and everything. That's Camera Raw in the background. So again, do I want to change the tint? Not particularly. Again, it's very subjective. Just go for what you feels right. Again, little bits. Exposure, no, definitely not. That's about half a stop down. I quite liked it the way it was. So double click it to take it back to default. The contrast, do I need to up the contrast? No, I don't think so. I think it was pretty good as it was. Just maybe a fraction like that. The shadows, probably not. They don't need to be moved, and no, they don't. So double click it to send it back. Do the whites need to be adjusted? No, definitely not. Double click to take it back. Do the blacks need to be changed? Again, there won't be. They won't need to be changed at all. So double click to take it back. Now I always find the texture, just a touch of texture can just bring out a little bit more detail. You've got to be very careful with it. Same with clarity, just a tiny little bit of clarity. Too much obviously and it takes it too far. And it will destroy all of the faint nebulosity and it makes it look too posterized. You just need a little bit of clarity. Same with DAs. Again, to take it too far and you've killed all of the background nebulosity. Take it down so far and it looks crazy. Again, just a little bit. Now vibrance. Can I up the vibrance of the picture a little bit? The difference between vibrance and saturation is vibrance tends to focus on the areas that are already quite colourful, whereas saturation will saturate all of the colours linearly and equally. So I've lifted the vibrance a little bit there. It's about, but okay. And then the saturation, can I do a bit with the saturation? Can you see everything's going up in the picture when I do the saturation? So something like that. Still a little bit red for my liking, ideally, but I don't want to. See, I can play around with this as well in Camera Raw. I don't want to overdo it on this for now. I could play around with this forever, basically. So Camera Raw, let's apply that to the picture. So this is after Camera Raw, before Camera Raw, after, before, after. So I'm quite happy with that, and we can turn it all off. So this is my final result almost now, and I could turn it all off, and that's what we came in with. So even better still, this is our final result, and if I open the open recent, I came in with my Synth L RGB. That's the image I came into Photoshop with, which is still not a bad picture to tell you the truth. Control 0 to get it to the same size, but we're lacking detail, and this is what we've finished with. Again, I still think it's a touch too salmon coloured, so I could tweak around with that, but it's brought out all of the clouds of hydrogen in the background. This emission nebula, the California Nebula, is being excited. The hydrogen atoms are being excited by these bright stars. So it's a nice subject to image. So okay, that'll do for now. So what I've also got here is Star Spikes Pro. This is a nice tool as well, and it'll add spikes to certain stars, as many as you want. I could really up this quantity slider, and that looks crazy. And I can increase the length of the stars. That's clearly too long. Something like that. Again, little bit, not too much. We could change the number of points if we want, but 4 is the reason why. Normally 4, and the reason why you get spikes around stars is because of the 4 vanes of a telescope, holding the secondary mirror. And yeah, we can do all sorts. Fiddle with the colours, coloration, and rainbow intensity. We can fiddle with that, but yeah, for the purpose of this now, I think that's going to do. I'd like to up the quantity a bit more, just to bring this star into it as well. But I'm happy with that. Not too much with this star, because otherwise it interferes with the nebula. So just drop that down slightly, and I'm just going to lower the length a little bit. That's it. I'll click OK. I like it. It's looking good. So what I'm going to do now, just to finish the image off, is put a name on it. So I'll go, what's my colour? It's white at the top here, you can see that. So I'll call this the California Nebula. Yeah, and over here, alternate 0169 to get the copyright symbol. Stephen Kirk, and it was 2019. I grabbed this and put my website sjkastro.com. Let's get that all nicely leveled up. Oh, notice I got capital H there. I don't matter for this, guys. Oh, come on, Steve, do it properly. The California Nebula. Cool. Okay, that's good. So now what we could do is save this, and we will save all of our layers. So if we want to come back to it, and this is a tip, guys, I often recommend people do. Just sometimes you'll get this right and you think, yay, great, I've done it. And you go for a cup of tea, and you come back, or go for a beer or something, and you come back and you think, nah, no, I need to change something. So if you've saved the document with all of the layers, you can just go back to wherever you like and make that change. So what you need to do then is save it as a PSD document. So we'll call it Steve YouTube version. Well, if I could type, that is Steve YouTube version, save, and that will then save all the layers, so I can open this up and do what I want at a future time. It takes quite a long time to save that because it's a big document. In fact, if I go to, and I can show you how big that document is, the PSD file. So I saved it, what did I call it? Steve YouTube version. Right click, properties, and it is 334 megabytes, so it's a big image. Okay, it's a big document. So I've saved it as a PSD, so I can go back and edit this at some point if I wanted to, and I'll also save it as a JPEG file, and I'll call it Steve YouTube version JPEG. Oh, Steve YouTube JPEG. Save. I've already replaced it. Let's replace it. Yes. What quality do I want? Leave it at 12, and that's it. So there you go, guys. That's a little bit of a processing example. There are 1,000,001 ways to do this. That I've just showed you one way to do it. Is it the right way? Not necessarily. It's a way to do it. There is no right, there is no wrong. There are some accepted ways of doing things like layering and masking, but exactly how you do it is entirely down to you. It's your picture at the end of the day, as I said earlier on. So I hope you found that helpful, and feel free to add any comments or ask any questions, and stay safe in the middle of this COVID lockdown. And that's me done. It's clear skies, guys. I'm out. Bye for now.